My name is Christina, and there was a time I stopped believing in miracles. Not intentionally. Not angrily. Just quietly, the way a candle doesn't go out with a bang but with a slow, steady fade until you suddenly notice the room is dark. Miracles used to feel like stories for other people. I'd hear them at church, the testimonies that made the whole congregation gasp. The auntie whose cancer vanished. The brother who found a job the very next day after praying. The couple who had a baby after 10 years of waiting. I clapped. I smiled. I said praise God. But deep down, I always wondered. Why not me? Why don't things like that ever happen to me? I believed in God, yes. But miracles? Those felt like rare treasures reserved for the chosen, the holy, the favored. Not someone like me, tired, flawed, often afraid, sometimes doubting. But everything changed one seemingly ordinary day, a day that began like every other, with a heart already drained before the morning even started. I didn't know it then, but that day would mark the first thread of a miracle that would later overhaul my entire life. Not one miracle. Not even two. But a chain of them, woven through pain, waiting, confusion, and surrender. This is the full story. My story. A testimony of real-life miracles, the kind that don't always arrive the way you expect, but always arrive exactly when you need them. If you are listening today and you're tired. If you're praying but hearing only silence. If you're holding on by a thread. Then this story is meant for you. Because I've learned something that I want you to know. Miracles don't start when the situation changes. Miracles start when you refuse to give up. Before anything good happened, everything fell apart. I was sitting at my kitchen table, clutching a cup of coffee that had long turned cold. The bills were scattered like fallen leaves across the table, each one shouting the same accusation. You can't keep up. My job was unstable. My mother was sick. My heart was exhausted. I remember staring at the wall, not really seeing anything, and whispering. Lord. I don't know how much longer I can do this. The silence that followed felt heavier than the bills, heavier than the diagnosis, heavier than all the fear I had tried to bury. And then, as if time to break me even more, my phone buzzed with a message from my mother's doctor. Your mother is not responding to the new medication. We may need to discuss alternative plans. Alternative plans. Those two words hit harder than the diagnosis itself. I felt something inside me collapse, like a pillar that had been holding everything up just snapped. I grabbed my keys and rushed to the hospital, rehearsing the worst-case scenarios in my head. When I entered her room, she looked so small, a fragile figure wrapped in blankets, breathing unevenly. Ma, I whispered, sitting beside her. How are you feeling? She opened her eyes slowly. Tired, but still here. I forced a smile, but something inside me cracked. Later that night, when she slept, I walked to the small chapel inside the hospital. It was empty, dimly lit, and freezing cold. I sat in the last pew and whispered a prayer that wasn't eloquent or strong, it was just raw. God, please. I can lose everything else, but not her. Don't let her slip away. I waited for a sign, a whisper, a warmth, anything. But all I got was silence. That was the night I realized something. Sometimes miracles begin in the quiet, in the moments when you think God isn't listening at all. A week later, as if life wanted to test the very limit of my endurance, I received an email from my company. The subject line was enough to break me. Department restructuring notice. I opened it with shaking hands. We regret to inform you that your position has been affected by the restructuring. I stopped reading. It felt like the room shrank and the air thinned. Like the universe had pressed fast forward on all my fears at once. I lost my job. My mother was sick. My savings were disappearing. And deep inside, a darker fear whispered. God has abandoned you. The conflict wasn't just the situation, it was the battle inside me. Faith versus fear. Hope versus despair. Trust versus confusion. I felt like a rope being pulled apart. One night, overwhelmed and numb, I took a long drive with no destination in mind. Somehow, instinctively, I stopped at the old chapel I used to visit as a teenager. It was closed. Dark. Silent. I pressed my forehead against the steering wheel and sobbed, not quiet tears, but the kind that come from the part of you you try to keep hidden. I whispered through the sobs. God, please, do you even see me anymore? No answer. Just my own heartbeat echoing in the silence. I drove home feeling emptier than ever before. The next morning, I sat by my window holding my mother's rosary, the same one she prayed with every night. I turned it over in my hands, not sure if I was praying or just holding something familiar so I wouldn't fall apart. I whispered again. Lord, why is this happening to us? Still silence. But the truth is, God often works even when he seems quiet, and the silence itself is not the end of the story. It was the beginning of mine. One afternoon, my mother called me from her hospital room, her voice unusually energized, almost excited. Chris, she said, I need to tell you something, but promise you won't think I'm crazy. I felt a pinch of worry. What is it, Ma? She exhaled shakily. Last night, when I prayed, I felt something warm, like someone was placing a blanket over me. And suddenly I could breathe easier. My body froze. I called the nurse, she continued, and she checked everything. She said my oxygen levels had suddenly improved. I whispered, Ma, are you sure? Yes, she said. And that's not all. She paused, voice cracking with emotion. I prayed for you. I asked God to send you a miracle too, not just for my healing, but for your life. My throat tightened. She continued, I told God, don't let my daughter drown while saving me. Give her something she cannot deny, something unmistakably from you. I cried silently. And then, as if the universe overheard her prayer, things began happening. Small things at first. A friend sent money without knowing my situation. Someone from church offered free meals for my mother. A stranger at the hospital said, God sees your heart, Anik. Don't lose hope. A neighbor offered me part-time work. A former colleague connected me with a community foundation. None of these were fireworks. None were dramatic. But they were seeds. Signs. Whispers. Steps forward. And the strangest thing happened. I began to feel lighter. Not because the circumstances changed, but because I felt seen again. For the first time in months, I prayed without feeling like my words were hitting the ceiling. I said, Lord, if you have more for me, I'm ready. I didn't know just how much more he had planned. 3 months after losing my job, something unexpected happened. One morning, I received a message from the director of the community foundation I had helped during a volunteer event. Christina, can we meet this week? We want to discuss an opportunity with you. My heart raced. When I arrived, the director smiled warmly and said, You probably don't know this, but the young women you coached during our workshop have been asking for you. They said you helped them believe in themselves. My eyes stung. He continued. We need someone with your heart. Someone who can guide, encourage, and inspire. We'd like to offer you a full-time position. I stared at him, speechless. A job. A purpose. A fresh start. But, why me? I asked. His answer felt holy. Because people trust you. And because you've lived through battles that give you depth. You speak hope in a way that feels real. It took everything in me not to break down in tears. The job offered more than my previous salary. More stability. More fulfillment. But the miracle didn't end there. When I told my mother the news, she cried softly and whispered, Chris, that's the miracle I prayed for. And then she said the words that completed the circle. I told God, if you're going to heal me, heal my daughter's life too. Her voice shook. He answered both. By the time my mother was discharged, stronger than she'd been in years, I had a new job, new purpose, and a new understanding of what miracles truly look like. They are not always sudden. Not always dramatic. Not always loud. Sometimes they unfold slowly. Quietly. Through people. Through moments. Through closed doors that lead to better ones. But they come. They always come. Working at the foundation changed everything. I met countless people walking the same roads I once walked: fear, loss, confusion, exhaustion. And every time I told them my story, every time, something in their eyes changed. Like a spark relit. Like a weight lifted. I realized that my miracle wasn't only for me. It was meant to ripple outward. To touch others. To remind people who were drowning that God still knows how to part waters. Since then, I've witnessed miracles in others. A woman healed after doctors said there was no hope. A young man freed from addiction after one prayer. A mother reunited with her daughter after 10 silent years. A family receiving unexpected provision the night their pantry ran empty. A student getting a scholarship she never applied for, accidentally selected, they said. Every story reminded me. God is still in the business of rewriting impossible endings. And as I stand today, healed, restored, strengthened, I carry this truth in my heart. If God did it for me. If God did it for them. He can do it for you. Your miracle may not come the way you expect. It may not come at the time you want. It may not come wrapped in fireworks or loud announcements. But it will come. Because hope is never wasted. Because God never sleeps. Because tears are never ignored. Because faith, even trembling faith, moves mountains. If Christina's story touched your heart today. If it reminded you that miracles still happen. If it breathed even a small spark of hope back into your spirit. Like this video. Share it with someone who needs a miracle today. Subscribe to the channel for more real-life stories of healing, faith, and hope. Let this be part of someone else's miracle. Because your share, your comment, your voice might be the message someone is praying for right now. Miracles are real. They still happen. And one is on its way to you.